Hi guys, Eva here, and today I am doing my January 2019 wrap-up. Before I start, you'll have noticed probably that I changed my channel name. I did wanted to put inside something that had to do with reading, so I decided to go with the inked reader. The reason is because even if you cannot see it, I actually have huge tattoo on my back, so yeah, I'm definitely inked. Since it's on my back, I usually don't display it in video, but you can go and check it out in Instagram. So I decided to go with that because I love books and I love tattoos, so yeah. And before I actually start with the wrap-up, I want to mention that this year I am basically introducing the mystery books in my wrap-ups, at least for a few months. I'm taking 3 challenges this year. 2 of the challenges there are TBR videos up my channel. In one, I am reading 10 books that I predict I will give 5 stars to, and in the other challenge I am reading, according to January, the 10 highest rated books on my TBR list on Goodreads according to January, as I said. So basically you can find the TBRs and I'm gonna read those books and then I'm gonna do wrap-ups for those challenges. And another challenge, I am just doing the wrap-up, I'm not doing the TBR. But basically I have to read 29 books for these challenges, and since I'm gonna do wrap-up videos for those, I thought it was gonna be a cool idea not to actually wrap them up until they are all done and I can wrap them all up. If I read a book during the month that belongs to one challenge or the other, I'm not gonna mention it here in my wrap-ups, and I'm just gonna do the wrap-ups at the end of the challenge for that book. So which means that I have done my statistics taking out those books. I will tell you each month how many mystery books I've read, and I will include the page count, but I won't include them in the January or star rating statistics. So when the actual wrap up for those challenges come out, it will be actually a surprise. And that also will keep my wrap ups throughout the year, probably shorter, and yeah, that's just a win-win in my opinion, and you get a bit of a surprise. So let's get into the January 2019 wrap-up with a few statistics. So I did well because my 5 books on my TBR, I read them all, and I have read actually a total of 9 books. 3 of those are mystery books. So I'm gonna talk about 6 books in here, and then I read also 8 graphic novels / manga things that I'm gonna wrap up in this video. I will start with the books and then the wrap up, so you can jump around if you're not interested in one or the other. And so that brings a total of 17 things in total. Of the graphic novels, one was also a mystery graphic novel. In these challenges there is just one graphic novel, so if you have watched my TBR you know what graphic novel is, but I'm still not gonna talk about it here. And in the books there was included an audiobook, but when I did the page count I took it out, so I'm not considering it for the page count, nor I am considering the graphic novels / manga as usual. So that brings the total amount of pages for the 8 books basically to 3,223 pages. Now for the January, not including the mystery graphic novels or the mystery books, I read 5 fantasy, 2 contemporaries, 2 paranormals, which one could be considered a fantasy paranormal, 3 urban fantasy, and 1 post-apocalyptic. And as far as the genre goes, not including the mystery things, 1 book was in the 1 range star, 1 book was in the range of 2 stars, 7 things were in the range of 3 stars, and 4 things were in the range of 4 stars. Of the month was Poison Study by Marie V. Snyder, and this is a fantasy young adult that came out many years ago and I finally got around to reading it. We are in this fantasy world where this girl, she's captured and she's given a choice to become the food tester for the emperor, I think it's the emperor, or be executed. And of course she decides to become the food taster, and so she goes into training with a guy that works directly for the emperor in order to become the next food taster. And of course the past poison testers, they didn't end up well, so she will have to learn how to distinguish between poisons and how to actually survive them. And the plot starts from there, basically from her becoming the food taster. Now the first half of this book I was like, okay, I think I am kind of too old for this book, so and then the second half I was like, actually this is not too bad, I might continue on with the series. I have to say that since I read this on ebook, and I hate ebooks, ugh, I hate reading books on ebooks, but I was still on holiday back then, so I didn't have any physical copy. Anyway, I think it jumped between like scenes really abruptly, so I don't know if it's the same in the book. I felt like one moment I was there and then whoa, we were totally in another part, so that was kind of confusing at times as the jumps were really abrupt. Apart from that, I liked the characters okay-ish. I don't honestly remember even their name, but towards the end I become a little bit more attached, at least to the main ones, and I am totally into the romance that is forming. That was really cute. So yeah, I maybe will continue on with the book since I own them. Characters were a little bit one-dimensional, so the bad guys were clearly bad. You could see definitely their next move coming, so there was no surprise on that side of the book. On the other side, I think the plot, especially towards the end, as I said, takes a turn that I was not expecting, so I might continue with the series, and I gave this 3.75 stars. Then I've read Breathe by Epic Lions, and this is a contemporary new adult / young adult romance book. And I am not going to talk about this book because I've done a whole review here, but this is my first 1-star book of probably the last 2 years. So yeah, I've done a review for this. I was really angry. I still have it because I haven't sold it yet, because honestly, who would buy such a shitty book? Anyway, I hated this freaking book, and if you wanna know why, here's the review. Then I've read The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. This is an adult fantasy. I don't know how many books there will be in the series. I know that the second one came out in 2018. The Kingdom of Dara have been united by this emperor called Mapidere, or something like that. And now that he's on his deathbed, all the enemies and people that are not really happy about being under a single banner, they start basically looking for another war to regain their independence. I was really eager to read this because Ken Liu, he wrote some short stories, I think, the Paper Menagerie, something like that, and he won an award for that. So I was really eager to get into this adult fantasy. I have to say that this book is told to us, so it reads like a really long war documentary. So it's like you're watching a documentary. It's basically told, like you can almost feel someone talking to you and say, and then in 600 this happened. So it's really weird the way this story is told, and it took me away from enjoying it a lot. It took me so much time to get attached to the characters that when the end came, I had just gotten like to feel something about them, because they felt so far away all the time from me. People died, but you had barely heard of them, and then you skip through like 30 years or something like that. So the way it's written, it's not my cup of tea, to be honest. Said that the second half is way stronger, I think, than the first half when you get more used to the writing style. And I did like the fact that there are no good guys in here. You can, you know, prefer one or the other, but at the end of the day they are all kind of grey characters that kind of do shitty things, some for the greater good or some because I think that's the greater good. So I appreciated that we don't have the hero who knows everything and who's perfect and just wins everything. So I appreciated how realistic the moves that the characters do in this book feel. And then was Bittersweet. So I will be continuing with the series. I am in no rush though. I'm gonna take my time because this doesn't read quickly. It's kind of a task reading this. It's just, as I said, reading a huge documentary with dates and people and skipping years, and I gave it 3.25 stars. Then I've read my Terry Pratchett book, which was Moving Pictures. This is book number 10. I had read number 11 to 14 before, so this was kind of like a miss on my part because I read all of the others apart from this, and then it was up to number 14. But anyway, this is a fantasy book. If you don't know, it's part of the Discworld series, which is a huge series written by Terry Pratchett. It's kind of a parody of fantasy. It makes fun of all the tropes that you can find in fantasies. And this in particular was about this bunch of alchemists that are not wizards, are not magician or anything like that, and they get really offended if you say so. When they find how to make movies, and this is basically a parody on Hollywood as well. Now, it was a long time since I read a Terry Pratchett book. Oh god, was I silly for like missing years of entertainment. I don't know why it took me so long to get back to one of a Terry Pratchett book, because I love them. Now, the plot are not perfect. They don't make much sense, and this is not exception. And I think the message is told in a such twisted way sometimes that it's not really understandable, and the plot are not really solid. I have to say that, but you're not here for the plot itself. If you read a Disco World book, it's not for the plot, it's just for the characters and the world and the humor. There are a couple of paragraphs in this book where you read about this camel called Evil-Minded Son of a Bitch, and I was ugly crying. I don't remember the last time I cried because I was laughing so much in a book. I think since I've read Mort, probably, by Terry Pratchett, I don't laugh. I don't cry when I laugh, like never. And I was ugly crying. I don't know if it was in a particular mood that day. I found this bit so funny. And when I texted one of my friends, I said, I still remember that bit because it was so bloody funny. So the Disco World series are just hella fun. I read 300 pages in one day or like 2 days. They just flow by. The humor is amazing. I love the wizards. Like, I think I'm so bloody funny. The university and the wizard. It's just, I love these books. And I gave these 4 stars because I cannot pass on the fact that the plot is not the best, but I absolutely love the series. So I will definitely recommend Terry Pratchett books, especially if you want a good laugh. I have read Lair of Dreams by Libba Bray, and I actually listened to this on audiobook. So I started in 2018 and I'm really awful with audiobook, but I'm getting better. This is the second book in the Diviners quartet. I think there are gonna be 4 books in total, and it's a paranormal adult, I would say, series, where in the first book you follow a bunch of characters while they try to figure out their way around some kind of psychic powers they all have in a way or in another. I won't say anything else, but I think I've read previous works by Libba Bray that were not even comparable to the quality of this series. And if you like paranormal and if you like really well done characters, I would say definitely pick up this series. This takes place in the 20s in New York, so there is also historical fiction elements in it, and I really enjoyed the second book. It made me laugh, it made me almost cry. I grew attached to the new characters. I loved the old ones even more than in the Diviners, and I will definitely be continuing with the series. Said that, I'm not gonna continue on with the series on audiobook because although it was wonderfully narrated, like the narrator of the audiobook, she's amazing. I have to recognize that, because even me, that I'm not like a big audiobook listener, I could appreciate that she changes her voice, she sings, it's amazing. So she's really good. But I think when you listen to the audiobook, it's really easy to skip parts, and I want to fully immerse myself in the novels. But I will definitely continue on in the physical format. And you know how strict I am with my ratings, but I gave this 4.75 stars. I have to say that the mystery itself in this book, which is different from the first book, it was kind of obvious, so that took away a little bit from my final ratings, but it's still an overall series that I would strongly suggest. It is abandoning me, but let's see. Then I read Darkling by K.M. Rice. This was suggested by one of my subscribers a long time ago because I didn't appreciate it uprooted by Naomi Novak as I was expecting to, and she recommended this, saying that it was a better version of Uprooted. Now, I have to disagree on the Uprooted comparison, meaning that I don't think this compares really to Uprooted in basically any way. Yes, the premise sounds similar. Basically, in this book, you follow a girl. She chooses to go to the darkness and sacrifice herself in order to save her village. Basically, in the world she lives in, this darkness has descended upon the land, and there is no sunlight anymore. So animals are dying, crops are dying, they cannot feed themselves anymore, and they think that an entity is, or someone is responsible for that. So she decides to go as a sacrifice, because before they had tried sacrifices animals and they had seen that someone had eaten them. So they thought, let's try and sacrifice a human being, and she offers herself up for many reasons that you discover throughout the book. This is a paranormal, would be considered paranormal fantasy. If I have to compare this to something, I would say this is a loose retelling of A Beauty and the Beast, with some touches of The Woman in Black by Susan Hill. And the first half of this book I was hooked. I was not expecting such a dark tale. And the beast, the darkling, it was so fascinating because it was not a first impact, like he's just gorgeous and we don't know what he's mean. He had a really different first impact with the main protagonist. So the first encounter didn't go as we thought it would go. I wished this stayed more horrorish than in the latter half did. Said that, I think the author reserves way more love for this book, because this is a story of loss, as she mentions in the blur, and I totally agree with her. This book had a depth that I was not expecting, and the paranormal, horrorish aspects are really well done. And although it gets a little bit in the cliche side toward the ends, it was still a solid book that I really enjoyed, and she should deserve more love. I've never heard anybody talking about this, so I'm glad that someone recommended it to me. The story that stuck in my mind, and I gave it 3.5 stars. Definitely the first half is more solid. Also, if you are not into horror or kind of jump scares a little bit, this might not be for you, because it is way more darker than you would expect. And for the books, that's it, because I'm not gonna talk about the mystery books, but I've read 3 this month, so yay me, getting ahead of my game. And I will talk about the graphic novels now, but I will also switch on the light because you cannot see me anymore. So the first things that I've read, I will wrap them up together, and this is Dawn of Arcana Volume 2 and Dawn of Arcana Volume 3, which are shoujo beat manga, which means that it's mainly targeted to young adults, especially female readers. Now, Dawn of Arcana is a fantasy series and takes place in this land where this princess, she's given in marriage to the prince of this other kingdom in order for the 2 kingdoms basically to stay at peace. And she goes there and she kind of hates his guts because he's really arrogant and kind of a prick. So that's the premise of the first one. And when she goes there, she takes with her bodyguard, almost, which is part of his race, which is not totally human. As you can see, he has like kind of dog ears, I don't know. So we show you some of the art. It's like this. I really love the art. And if you ask me who's my like ultimate crush, it's not a human being, it's him. His name is Caesar, and yes, he is the prick, arrogant asshole that we had in the first book, in the first volume, but he redeems himself somehow. Plus, I kind of like bad guys, I have to admit. So I don't know, the way he's drawn and the way he interacts with our protagonist, I love him so much. I love him so much, and she's so lucky because this guy also is pretty awesome. It's definitely heavily on the romance side with a love triangle. It's kind of a guilty pleasure series, but I am obsessed with it. I gave this volume 4.5 and this volume 4.75 stars. There are some fantasy elements that I'm looking forward to it, but yeah, I'm here for the love triangle and I'm here for Caesar. I am here because I need more of him. I think this series is 10 volumes in total, and what can I say, he's like the love of my life. So I read then I read Merupuri by Matsuri Hino, volume 1. This is a urban fantasy shoujo beat manga, and it's about this girl that basically owns this mirror, and one day she's going to school or something like that. This kid comes out of this mirror, and this kid has been cursed by his evil brother. And when he is left in darkness, he suddenly grows up and he becomes a young man, and he can turn back into being a kid only when he's kissed by this fairy maiden. Now, This is just a 4-volume series that I own all 4 volumes, but I've read just these ones because it was okay. I liked the art. That was okay. I read by her Vampire Academy, if I'm not mistaken. I loved that series, so I was really curious to see this one. But I have to say that I find the fact that this guy is a kid and is kind of a love interest of our protagonist, and yes, he turns into a young man, but his mind is still one of a kid. So I was not really buying the kid love interest, to be honest. I found it a little bit off-putting, but we will see. I have volumes, so I will read them and then decide to keep the series or not. I gave it 2.75 stars, I think. Then I've read issue number 3 in The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. This is the graphic novel from which the TV series on Netflix that I love is based upon. Urban fantasy. Again, you follow Sabrina. She is a witch. She's about to turn 16, and on her birthday she will have to decide if she wants to sign the Book of the Devil, basically, or become a human without powers. That's the premise. And this issue was not as good as the others, was less interesting in my opinion, apart from the end, so we'll definitely be continuing, and I gave this 3 stars. Then I've read Honey Blood by Miko Mitsuki, another shoujo, and the premise of this is that basically this girl, she goes to a school where all the kids are obsessed with the novels about vampire that this author is putting out. All the girls are obsessed with this guy and these stories, these books that are coming out about vampires, and one day she finds out that the author, he is her neighbor and he knows a lot about vampires because he might be one of them. Now, this was really cliche, really like cheesy cliche. The art was okay. There are just 2 volumes translated of these, so I am debating if, I mean, I will probably try the second volumes, and yeah, it was 3 stars. It wasn't too bad. The guy was kind of hot. I have a thing for guys in mangas, which if it's not useful, they are fictional characters, but anyway. I might continue on, I might not. It was okay. 3 stars, read it, but I'm not saying buy and read it because, yeah. I have a mystery graphic novel, which if you've seen my TBR, it's not gonna be a surprise, but I'm not gonna talk about that. Instead, I'm gonna talk about The Stand by Stephen King, the graphic novel version American Nightmares, which is volume number 2 by Aguirre Sacasa, Perkins and Martin. Now, The Stand is a post-apocalyptic book by Stephen King. Basically, this virus has escaped a military base and has killed kind of 99% of human population on Earth. And you follow the few survivors. I'll show you some of the art. There it is. So the only volume in the series that I had read before was this one that I had picked up from the library, and I enjoyed it less upon rereading it. I don't know why. Say that I think the story is really interesting still, and the characters are pretty realistic as per usual for Stephen King. I really like Stephen King. He's not my best author or anything, but I really appreciate him as an author, so I will definitely continue on. I also think that the way this topic is treated, this virus that is killing all population, is done really realistically, so it kind of gives me the chills. This is a horror. It's really graphic, so be aware of that if you want to go into this. It's really violent, as per usual of Stephen King. I gave this 3.5 stars, and as I said, I will be continuing with the series, which is really hard to find on sale. Just something that you probably didn't need to know, but yeah, I'm kind of struggling here. Kind of impossible. I mean, unless you don't want to sell your kidney before you can afford to buy them. So yeah, I'm struggling for volume number 4, but anyway. Thank you for watching. That was it. If you're new, I would love for you to subscribe, so hit the button down below. If you want to talk about some of these books in the comments down below, I'm always more than happy to do it. Enjoy your day, night, depending on where you are, and I'll see you next time. Ciao!